with that thought in mind, we will zoom in on what leadership looks like when it's built across places, people, and systems. When learning from different contexts help us to see our very own work more clearly.
This plenary brings together leaders who have built movements, strengthened systems, and shaped learning at scale across India and beyond. Together, we explore what it takes to translate leadership into lasting change for children and young people.
Please give a warm welcome to Camille Massey, who has spent decades building trust and collaboration across networks, helping leaders work together where systems often work apart.
We are honored to welcome Srimati Archana Sharma Awasthi, Additional Secretary, Samagra Shiksha and Adult Education Bureau, Ministry of Education, Government of India, who unfortunately couldn't be with us in person but is joining us online. She leads the Nipun Bharat mission, shaping foundational learning for millions of children across the country.
Perfect. And joining them is Camila Pereira, who supports school leadership development across communities and education systems worldwide.
And last, but certainly not the least, please welcome Cynthia McCaffrey, who works to strengthen partnerships that support children and young people across India.
Welcome. Moderating this conversation is Meenakshi Ramesh, who brings both a system-level perspective and on-ground experience to guide this dialogue. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. I know you've had your lunch, so there's a little bit of energy left. Come on. Thank you. Over to you, Meenakshi ma'am, to take this dialogue forward.
Secretary on Zoom already?
Actually, she joined.
Okay, I'll see this one. Good afternoon, early good evening. I won't say good evening yet because then it's time to record and go out and have a nice time. But I love the idea of this plenary as a way of wrapping up, somehow bringing together all the ideas that have been literally bursting out of this auditorium since morning. The various exhibits that are there, just from when you enter, the vibe, just showcasing all the work of young students from all over the country. I think it's just beautiful, isn't it, the way it's been set up? So thank you very much for joining us at this session. Will you let me know when she's online, please? I'd like to acknowledge her when she comes online. All right. But can you hear me? So in the meantime, we will start with the dignitaries on the stage, and I hope we'll have Ms. Sharma Awasthi with us very soon. The idea of the topic is a little bit gloom and doom, if I may say, but there is room for optimism. I'd like for us to constantly keep that line of gloom and doom versus optimism, because we are here to find a solution, but we are also here to recognize that there is a certain urgency about doing what we've set out to do. So I want to, and the note that I received from the organizers has some very cute points in it. It says, emotions, moral responsibility. Yes, we all owe a moral responsibility to the billions of young people out there that look to their leaders, that look to their governments and to civil society to give them the tools for what it will need to negotiate their future. And I was in another discussion right here which said that, what are those tools? We don't know, right? 15 years ago when I had already started, so I'm older than I think I am. But 15 years ago, there's no Meta, there's no Instagram, there's no Gmail, or maybe I had just started with my Gmail account. There's no Amazon, there's no cloud. So 15 years from now, what are we going to prepare these young people for? So can we just give them the skills that will make them ready to face whatever it is that comes their way? All these billions of young people in the global south, some numbers say 80% of the world's young population will live in Asia, Africa, Latin America. So how do we discharge our responsibilities towards them? I'm going to start with you, Cynthia, with your perspective of being, of representing a multilateral organization in India. What do you think is the most important thing you'd like to tackle right now? Is it mindset? Is it breaking system? Is it just getting out there and doing something quickly so that people get the urgency? What is it that keeps you up at night?
First, I'm so thrilled to be here. So thank you. And thank you for reminding us gloom and doom, but also hope at the end. I think I thought about this because we were preparing at UNICEF 1 billion young learners. And I had a great answer until Mr. Shubhalal spoke this morning. And he changed my answer. And I think the answer is responsibility. And that all of the above. And we actually know what to do in many ways. So it's doubling down on the responsibility that each of us has from our different perches to look at mindset, to look at building the capacity. So as he noted, the government has a major role in creating that framework and that foundation. Philanthropy, private sector, has a huge responsibility in letting us understand what they need, but also maybe giving us the risk financing. Civil society, listening to their voices, and when we give them space to speak up, that they do speak up. And then I would add young people themselves. So I think that accountability, that responsibility that he reminded us at the very outset, I would say that's the urgency, that we don't leave here and say, wow, that was so incredible, what awesome discussions, but I don't have the budget. Or I can't put it in this year, I'll think about it next year. We all have a responsibility to find a way to do it now.
Very well said. I think the now, N-O-W, capital, bold, underline, italic, all of that is what we need to take away from here. Camila, if I may ask you, I think you very recently executed a program which took a cascading leadership transformation program to thousands of principals across Brazil, if I'm not mistaken.
I have worked in Brazil for a long time of my career, and now
the most recent program that your profile talks about, that's not only Brazil, that's across the world.
Yes. So I've stepped into this global role now, and we are working across regions. Yes.
So tell us, how do you think about leader transformation, school leader transformation, in the context of this urgency?
Yeah, so I think this question that you've asked about, you've asked Cynthia about where do we start, right? Is it mindset? Is it capabilities? Is it systems? And I've been thinking about this, the linearity of our thought, and it's not linear, right? This is cyclical. So I think that there are many entry points to trying to solve the challenges that we are trying to solve. And if we tackle mindsets, it will change capabilities and systems. If we tackle different aspects of the systems, it can change mindsets and capabilities, and so on and so forth, right? So if we break the linear mindset that we have, and then we start thinking about this more cyclical, I think it's a great way to start approaching this, because then we will have to go through any entry point that we have. In different systems, we have different entry points. Now that I'm working across different countries and different regions, I see that all the time at Global School Leaders. Countries will have different entry points for you to start working with leadership and with education and transforming systems. So we have to look for the low-hanging fruits. And really, because given the sense of urgency that we all share here in this auditorium, in this room, right? I think that really looking for the entry points that we have, and then knowing that this cycle will happen when we tackle one of those problems. Yes.
Great. And I think one of those entry points could be to try and break the cycle of we don't have the money to do it, and that's why I want to ask Camille for her thoughts on, do you think giving across the world has evolved enough or rapidly enough with the changes that we're seeing, with the growth in inequity, and with the urgency of needing to invest more patient money into this process? Do you think the giving mindset, businessmen, philanthropists, do you see them rising to the challenge?
That's such a good question, and I agree with you about the urgency of these times. I'm thinking of capital and thinking about it, yes, is transactional in those resources, but also thinking about the relational and the trust that can be built to unlock even more capital. And at Synergos, we're an organization almost 40 years old, and we are a network of philanthropists around the world, families and individuals, also social entrepreneurs, and we have fellows, so members of civil society, and then country programs around the world. And I'm mentioning this network because I think part of what we're beginning to see about investment is that collaboration. And we're starting to see opportunities for co-investment. I mean, is it urgent enough? I think given the inequities, we of course want more and we want it to happen more quickly.
Yesterday.
But we also want to be strategic and to look for those leverage points. And I think Synergos is honored to be a partner with Shiksha Lokam. And I'm mentioning that because I think that approach of bringing players together and bringing partners together and beginning to bring those funding networks together, part of it is going to be more strategic, and I think having those expertise and those funders together can ideally unlock even more capital.
Right. Thank you for that. I think I want to actually circle back to your point in a little bit. Should I ask my question and then you will play it to Ms. Sharma? How's that? Should I? Yeah? So I wanted to ask Ms. Archana the question that, FLN came to the top of the policy importance pyramid with the NEP in 2020, and under the able guidance of leaders like her, Nipun Bharat has really brought out the urgency and the ability. I mean, like I was going to say that India is seen as the world's scale lab. So to be able to accomplish this at scale, the government has really shown that it's possible. So I wanted to ask her about her thoughts on how does this move to the next level. We've heard that the government is thinking about increasing the FLN umbrella to grade 5. And how does she think about this, what shall I say, this axis of having to do scale with speed and with accuracy and with the kind of complexity of languages that we have in a country like India? So while we wait for her response, I want to come back to you, Cynthia. Can you think of some examples that UNICEF may be able to show to the world as this could be a way of doing this? Civil society, philanthropists, leaders, governments all coming together to have a massive breakthrough kind of impact that can really change the trajectory of what we're trying to achieve.
So when you asked what was one of the favorite things that we remember, I'm remembering Jack. And Jack said, don't try to innovate and create by yourself, imitate. Yes. So I've been taking notes from all of the things I've been listening to.
He also said no need to pay for anything. Somebody else will pay. Unfortunately, I don't know if we all say that, then who will pay?
So I think one is, this is a tremendous learning in terms of this. I don't think we can overstate it, coming together, all of the different perspectives, different countries. And so let all of us, UNICEF is here because we need all of you. And so I think as we go back, and as I'm going back to Delhi, that is just also a reminder of the importance of the partnerships and the connections we'll make here. A few things. One is, as we look at early learning and at what the world has done for early learning, 20, 25 years ago, we didn't have a lot of data, but there are over 150 fairly recent, over recent years, global reports that talk about experiential learning, joyful play, joyful learning. And that is something that with government, civil society, private sector, academics, and UNICEF, we've brought that into classrooms around the world. And that means we've invested in early childhood education, early childhood development, so that more children are coming to school ready to learn. In India, we've seen it through Nipun, Bharat, which makes me think that, is that India has embedded this learnings and ideas into Nipun, Bharat.
Yes.
And that's bringing into the classroom, we're seeing it. So something that was an idea, so we've gone from a pilot and testing evidence, and a government like India has put it into its national approach
Policy
and
document,
taken
yeah.
it to scale. And that means it can go to scale globally as well and learn from it. But I think we have our colleague online.
Maybe not.
I think, go ahead. I think Ms. Sharma Awasthi has responded to our question.
Might already be knowing about Nipun Bharat mission, but since I'm the mission director, I love talking about it wherever I can and howsoever much I can. So I would begin with quoting from the National Education Policy which came out in 2020, because it directly sets the agenda for us, for the country, to work towards foundational literacy and numeracy, and especially the preschoolers and the young children. So as we all know, all are experts here, that over 85% of a child's cumulative brain development occurs prior to the age of 6. So NEP mentions that indicating the critical importance of appropriate care and simulation of the brain in the early years in order to ensure healthy brain development and growth. This basically sums up why at this age and what to do. So the overarching goal will be to ensure universal access to high quality ECCE across the country in a phased manner. Then it goes on to say that the ability to read and write and perform basic operations with numbers is a necessary foundation and an indispensable prerequisite for all future schooling and lifelong learning. Accordingly, the nation has come up with the Nipun Bharat mission. And let me tell you that Nipun in Hindi, for those who do not know, it means expertise in something. And full form, it's an acronym, says National Initiative for Proficiency in Reading with Understanding and Numeracy. So again, it sums up what we want from the mission, that every child becomes Nipun, that is an expert in alphabets and numbers and comprehensive learning along with that. So it's basically to learn to read so that they can next read to learn more in the school. So for this, how do we start? Now in India, when students come to grade 1, they are coming from various places due to the huge diversity in the country. So there are children who are coming from Anganwadi centers, which are the preschool centers. The scheme came in back in 1975. Then there are children who have not gone anywhere till they come to grade 1, so they are coming from home. And then they are coming from various private play schools and government play schools. So what we need is that the children are school ready when they come to grade 1. So we have started this program called Vidya Pravesh, which again means how to entry to knowledge. So entry to school system. And I'm very happy to share with everybody that in the last 3 years, more than 40 million children have undergone this Vidya Pravesh module and have become school ready to start the school with. Otherwise, what happens is that in grade 1 they start falling behind, and then that loss is unable, they are unable to recover it in the next few years. So, and then there are various other initiatives.
Did we lose the link?
On stage.
Should we continue? I think we've lost the link.
Yes.
Camila, I want to ask you, like in the morning, the Shikshagra Awards recognize the outstanding efforts of 3 teachers, 3 individuals who went out of their way to create something. Is there a formula for this? Is there like a cookie cutter that you can go out and say, I'm going to create 1 million school leaders with ABC qualities? Come on, let me check if you have those. Something from your experience tells you you can see something and find out, here is a game changer?
Yeah, so that's a very hard question, of course.
That's why I asked you.
At Global School Leaders, we've been working to improve and strengthen school leadership across the Global South. And we have developed through the years. We work with partners to support them in developing and delivering high-quality training programs for school principals. And beyond that, we are now trying to create a movement where we are able to prioritize school leadership in the global education conversations, right? They are this liaison, this bridge between policy and practice, and yet many times the school principals are overlooked when we discuss global education, when we think about interventions at schools. Of course, we talk a lot about teachers, and we should, but we also should be thinking about the school principal. So through those years, we have developed at GSL, that's how we call Global School Leaders, what we call 6 high leverage actions.
See, I knew you had a formula.
Which include a few things like that are obvious across school leaders, like creating high expectations for schools and students, right? That is key, of course. And for me, in my personal experience, that is a game changer, to answer your question. I think you cannot succeed without these high expectations towards all students, right? Then we have many other things we have identified, like how school principals should be able to use assessments data to inform school improvement, how they should be able to serve as coaches and support for professional development for teachers, how they should be able to identify inequity patterns and disrupt them in schools. So all of that, and then we co-develop with partners programs using those principles, because it has to be customized. It can't be a recipe, because we are working across contexts and across countries, so we do need to be more customized. But those high leverage actions are things that we've seen over and over that are relevant for school principals. And what happens in practice, and we know, is that most school principals are still political appointed, or they are good teachers who become school principals.
Not good administrators.
And not good administrators, right?
So the school has got a bad administrator and lost a good teacher.
Exactly. So we were super happy with the GEM report that recently came out in 2024, talking about school leadership and the importance of school leadership. And they have also said and stated that very clearly: good teachers not necessarily make good school principals, right? It's clear that a good school principal will have experience in the classroom. That's very important. But one thing is not a cause to the other. So the way we think about developing and training school principals, and also selecting them, because that's another thing we are starting to think a lot about at Global School Leaders, are the policies around school leadership, right? So how are they being selected? What are the standards in the countries for school principals? So all of that are things we are thinking a lot about, doing research about, and in the context of this conference that is trying to build a movement and thinking about 1 billion futures, is how do we think about school principals in the context of this movement and of 1 billion futures? I think they have a key role to play.
Absolutely. I'm just thinking about my own past, and I'm thinking our school principal served, let's say, for 10, 15 years, oversaw cohorts of at least 700, 800 year after year. So one enabled, empowered leader can actually cause that cascade change over so many years, so many classes, so many children. So thanks for that insight. I actually kind of asked you like a blindside question, but it was lovely to hear your response. So
Thank you,
that's great
Meenakshi.
learning. Camille, I want to ask you a question that my young colleague Karishma told me, a very nice point. She said, there are only 2 disruptors. There's education and there's technology. And we are living in an age where we have to think of one hoping to enable the other, right? How are we hoping technology is now going to enable us to disrupt education as the way it is delivered now? And that question I'd like to ask both of you as well. I'd like to ask Ms. Sharma Awasthi as well. What does she think about how the government is going to use technology to kind of rapidly scale up in the mission to Viksit Bharat. But I want to ask you also, Camille, about the tech billionaires. The richest people are now all the tech people. And earlier, we didn't think about philanthropy and technology in the same breath. Do you think we can think about philanthropists and technologists in the same breath now? Do you think we can get some of them to come back and invest in the global south, in some of these public goods that are so needed for the world to be a better place?
Well, let me start with technology and education, the first part of your question. I'm seeing a lot of changes and excitement from our Global Philanthropist Circle members who run programs around the world, who are working on platforms and with technology. One is working on different divisions from the Khan Academy and its evolution. We've already heard today here about some exciting tech work that's being done with Shikshak Lokam. I think there are a lot of possibilities, but while we're talking about that, I just want to come back to the importance of mental health and well-being, and that direct contact with principals and teachers and students, and not to lose sight of the importance of that. Something that's a priority for Synergos in the work that we're doing to make sure the social and emotional learning of students is addressed. So while we see endless possibilities and a lot of excitement in models with technology, just that balance, I think, is so critically important. In terms of unlocking more capital, we are seeing from some of the tech billionaires, we're seeing some philanthropy happening out of there, and also from family members from those tech billionaires, and we know a number of foundations that are giving. I hope that could increase exponentially.
From your lips to God's ears.
Given the urgent issues. But while we were talking about unlocking capital, and we have on our panel someone from the government, from the Ministry of Education, I wanted to give an example of what I was speaking about earlier around unlocking capital. And an example is of Synergos working in Bangladesh. And I'm mentioning this because there are very wealthy philanthropists which they came to Synergos and said, we would like to fund you and your team to address a specific problem in Bangladesh, child drowning, so a safety issue. And so we hired a team, Esha Hussain, who lives in Bangladesh, and she hired a local team, and they were in the households, meeting with the families, and what became clear is it was not just an issue of safety, that there was a necessity for early education, for nutrition. It was a holistic approach that was needed for young children in Bangladesh. And so over the past few years, Synergos used a methodology we call bridging leadership. And we had from civil society and from other partners a group of people who called themselves bridging champions. And they convened across ministries. So you have Ministry of Health, of Education, of Women and Children, and you have other partners there, civil society, and coming together to say, how can we address this problem and build these integrated childcare centers? So now I'm coming to unlocking capital. So through these discussions, first of all, building trust, it took time. These groups were coming together on a regular basis, and instead of saying, well, this is not my responsibility, or this is yours, or I would like all the attention, or my ministry doesn't have all the funds, it was a process that involved lowering ego and building trust, hearing about what each ministry could provide, hearing the hopes and dreams, keeping the focus on those children, and the ultimate result, $40 million commitment from the government, and now those integrated childcare systems are happening. They're being built across the country. And it's an amazing effort that started from philanthropists. And what was funded there, and this is important because this came up in our last session, how do we also get funding for the process and for leadership? Yes. And part of the funding came for that bridging leadership process, going across divides, making sure that government, private sector were engaged, and ultimately benefiting those children.
Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful example. I think we need more stories and examples like that to build our case for such concerted action across the Global South. I wanted both your takes on my tech question, but Camila, I also want to ask you, so you can choose to answer whichever question you like. But the last point that Camille made about support for leadership, that's really the question I wanted to ask you. How hard or how easy, cannot have been easy, how hard has it been for you to raise patient support for building leadership?
Oh my God. Where do I start?
We have 11 minutes. I need to give Cynthia 4. So you have 3 minutes.
Okay, I will stick to this question then. It's been hard, and not only because 2025 was a crazy year for not only patient capital, but for any capital, but also because school leaders are essential infrastructure for the system, right? They are what, as we were saying, like what can keep sustainability of programs. So we need to start seeing school leaders not as the last mile of reforms, but an essential part of any reform. But then there is more capital available for organizations like ours when it comes to the agendas, specific agendas. So I want to have a program on FLN, and then I want to train school leaders on that. Then we have a program on training school leaders for FLN. Then I want to do a program on gender. Then I want to do a program on education in emergencies. And school leaders are instrumental to those agendas, so that's when it comes in. But thinking about school leadership as an essential infrastructure for any successful education system, this has been very hard, for me at least, to be able to communicate clearly and to find the resources with funders for this kind of work that does not translate immediately in student outcomes. It does translate, actually. We have an RCT here in India that we've ran with J. Paul, 18 months intervention, and we were able to find impact on student outcomes in numeracy, right? So it's amazing. With Allocate, our partners are here, so we can also talk more about this. But also, we've consistently find, and we monitor our interventions a lot with robust methods, impact on teachers' practices, impact on school climate, impact on sense of belonging of students. When you train confidence, when you train and you support school leaders. So all of those impacts are crucial for student learning. We already know that. So yeah, to your question,
so
I
for
think
a billion futures, I think that whole thing needs to stand on its head, right? To say you have to support the leader first, and then see how the leader will go out and create the impact. It'd be a long time if you had to devise small programs for a billion kids and then try to get leadership support for each one
and
of them.
more and more we have robust evidence of the impact of school leadership.
That's great. Thank you. I was going to go back to you for the tech question, more in terms of how does the UNICEF see technology as a support, as an enabling tool for the kind of change that it wants to see, especially in the Global South?
So maybe one thing I wanted to note, and it's preaching to the choir, but education accounts for just over 50% of global economic growth and up to 70% of assistance and relieving poverty for the poorest in the world since 1980. So education, when you ask about economic growth globally, and when you look at the poorest of the poor, education is an answer that we keep saying since 1980. Enter technology. Imagine if we grab technology and we're able to help accelerate that and multiply it. So I think what UNICEF is seeing is twofold. One is when people start talking about technology or AI, we're trying to come into the room and say, how do you promote How do you use technology to genuinely promote access, but quality as well as protect? So one of the questions that I always want to ask technology experts is, we have to be careful that we don't try to hem everything in. And when you speak about children and young people, we have to have guardrails. But we have to think about all of it. How do you promote and protect at the same time? So I think, how do we really grab technology and use that to help that growth with education? Let me give a picture, because the UN loves to speak in these big things. And when you go back, you'll say, she had a nice jacket, but I don't know what she said. India has taken this recently. So UNICEF, working with this notion of how do you use technology to share information more quickly. So getting cash in the hands of the poorest or the most vulnerable is something that the government of India has done. And we've been able to do it because we've seen cash transfers around the world. India has also used technology to get families banked. So in a very remote village in Gujarat, I met a young woman who, except for that scheme, that took the data and said, if we give the family household extra cash and keep paying, she'll stay through school. She had a bank account, so she was able to have information and finances. And so a young woman who would have fallen out of school because of her circumstances, her parents had died, she was being raised by her grandparents, was on her way to nursing school. So the beauty of this was that she stayed in school, she's on her way to nursing school, but the thing that gets me emotional is the way she looked at her younger sisters. Talk about disruption. It wasn't just Mina who was about to go to school and become a nurse. It was her two sisters right behind her. That had disrupted that entire family's future. And that was because of education and using pieces and elements of technology to make it get to people faster and stay with them.
That's right. Beautiful. I love that Cynthia talks about technology in a way that I can understand. I didn't get half of what the previous panel was about, and I didn't want to say it, but I feel like I can say it here because she painted such a beautiful picture. But yes, I think we're about to see some very rapid disruptions. I'll try and stay on top of it. I had one question for all of you, and I'm going to also ask that of Ms. Archana, the secretary. Ma'am, I'm going to go back to the title of the panel, Painting a Vision for a Billion Futures. What would be your image or a happy place when I asked you this prompt of a vision for a billion futures? While we wait for her response on video, may I start with Camille? Can you tell us a nice happy picture of painting a vision of a billion futures?
Well,
As a child in
Yeah, go ahead.
imagine myself as a child in today's world. I would like that when I grow up, I get to exercise my choice of what I want to do and pursue as a career and in my life, and I get ample opportunities for it. So that would
How
be
beautiful. Lovely. Do we have her live? That answer came really quickly. Wow, that was beautiful. Yes, Camille.
well, just today we saw these young student stars on the program, and my image is of a constellation of this beautiful open sky with stars shining brightly, and that's the students, the teachers, the families, the other players involved, not one shining more brightly than the other, except obviously the student being centrally important. But just thinking of the complexities, and I think I'm thinking of the sky because of the honoree who had that beautiful van and was teaching students, and we were looking through the telescope, and I was imagining what the students were seeing. But just the endless possibilities, no borders, just the endless possibilities and the magic that can happen, and the brightness.
Wow, beautiful. I can visualize that. Camilla.
I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about the role of pleasure in our lives. and I'm imagining and visualizing a school where adults have pleasure in teaching and leading, and where kids find real pleasure in learning. I think that if we are able to materialize that in all of our schools, we will have changed a lot for the future.
Thank you. Cynthia.
Mine might be a picture that flashed up. Hina. Hina is a girl who was orphaned at the age of 5,
Is that her?
and that's Hina.
Yeah.
And India's systems caught her, cared for her, educated her, and now she's finishing her business degree and working at a bank. And I met her because she was at an event with Sir David Beckham, talking to a room full of CEOs and heads of foundations, companies, corporations, NGOs. And she was talking to them about the incredible opportunities and hope that she has when everyone comes together, saying that government gave me opportunities because of the systems and the safety net. I have opportunities because of the skills that people helped identify, and I got 21st century skills. And I've been given a chance. So I think my hope is the constellation that we look up in the sky and we just see millions or 1 billion Hinas. And she said, we don't want charity, we want a chance.
Wow. Beautiful. Lovely. I was going to share that this morning I was going through all those pictures. The children have, the ones hanging as you enter. There are children that have spoken about their ideal school. Kushbu was telling me about some of the prompts, their ideal school and what do they want to do. And there was one picture of a child who's thinking about her possibilities. One is she's playing in the field. Another is she's huddled at home. And there was one where she had just drawn 2 feet. And 1 foot was in a school shoe, which meant she was going to school. And the other foot was almost in a shackle, like she was being sort of forced into a marriage. And to me, it broke my heart that a child would even have to think that her future could have this or that. So my dream would be that every child would have only dreams of freedom and of choice and of, playing in happy fields and doing what their heart wants them to do, instead of worrying about whether they'd be forced into something that they didn't want to do, or they'd be forced to stay at home when they actually wanted to go to school. That agency, that freedom is what I hope and pray for every one of these billion children whose education we want to take care of. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on our panel today. We loved having you with us, and we love that you're friends of Shikshagra. Thank you.